Louisville football hosted the number 6 team in the country, the Miami Hurricanes, at L&N Stadium on Saturday afternoon. Louisville scores 45 points and comes away with an L. That's not good. Plenty to discuss. So what do you say we hike about it? For today's trail, made the short trip out to Fairdale, Kentucky, part of the Louisville Metro, to Jefferson Memorial Forest. As noted at the beginning, the trail is called the Purple Heart Trail. It's about a 1.8 mile loop with my back and forth. We'll do more than that. Quite a bit up and down, about 432 feet of elevation gain, or thereabouts. The experience on this one. Leaves are slowly turning, but let's talk some football. I'm looking for a defense. Has anybody seen a defense? It kind of looks like a W. That eluded Louisville this weekend. What are some things that we like and dislike? There's quite a bit to dislike. But what did we like? Let's start with the likes. Here's something that I liked a lot. 59,000 plus. Card Nation showed up. Good little tip of the hat though. I was kind of impressed by how many Miami fans were there, but yeah, second largest crowd in L&N Stadium history to see the Cardinals football. That's good. I like that a lot. Trail sign tells me to keep going this way. Something else that I like. To me, this was the best offensive play calling we've seen thus far in 2024. Thought it was mixed up quite well. Thought the balance was done quite well. Thought there was a nice couple mixes of some trick plays. Obviously, huge fourth down fake punt. Dwayne Martin, which is something else that I continue to like. Louisville's got some playmakers. Tyler Shuck, no question, one of the best quarterbacks, I'd have to say not just in the ACC, but also in the country. Ja'Cory Brooks, clearly one of the best wide receivers in the country. Isaac Brown, the true freshman, clearly one of the best true freshmen in the country. One of the top running backs in ACC and beyond. You got Chris Bell making plays. Colin Lacey, how about that 100-yard kickoff return for a touchdown? So there's playmakers. Jamari Johnson, unfortunate injury there. We'll get to him when we talk about the tight end grade. But there's some things to like, but it's all on one side of the ball. That's the problem. Something that I disliked. I mean, we could just put a big loop around it all and just say defense. But there's multiple things that we disliked about the defense. Sure, we knew coming in Miami was the #1 scoring offense in the country. They were the #1 offense in the country when gaining plays of 20 yards or more. #2 nationally in plays of 10 yards or more. Cam Ward was the #1 quarterback coming in passing yards. We knew all this. Nobody was expecting a shutout, that's for sure. If they were, they needed to get their head checked. Miami clearly has one of the top offenses in the nation, no question. You knew they were going to get some big plays, no question, and they did. But it was more than that. It was more than just that Miami put up 52. It was that, and we're going to exclude their last possession when it was just, let's kneel down and run out the clock. 10 offensive series, you score on 7 of them. 6 of those are touchdowns. Plus you had a defensive touchdown. It's almost, almost didn't matter how well the Louisville offense was playing because it just couldn't keep up. The defense did have a couple important stops. but you need more than just a couple when you're trying to pull off a big win, one that would propel the program in the direction that it had hoped once the season started. So as I was getting to, it's more than just the points, the yardage, it's the missed tackles. At least 13 of them, at least, I say. About half of those coming from the secondary. I don't want to get ahead of myself. The report card is coming. So, multiple things defensively not to like, clearly. Something else I like. Isaac Brown is clearly a stud. To reference Bobby Petrino, he's a feed the stud kind of guy. You know who else is becoming a feed the stud kind of guy? Duke Watson. Like seeing him get involved. Seems to make some plays. Great to see him get that 4-yard touchdown. Really like the youth and the talent and ability in that Louisville running back room. Speaking of running backs, also like seeing Maurice Turner dress again. I expect we'll see him play on Friday night against Boston College. Colin Lacey, really like his performance on special teams, returning kicks against the Hurricanes, becoming the 11th member in program history to return a kickoff for a touchdown. Love seeing that. Legit threat every time he gets one. It wasn't all great offensively. Did shoot themselves a couple times. 3 of 12 on third down conversion attempts. Got to do much better on that, especially when you're in a shootout and trying to make a splash with a big win on your home turf. Got to improve on third down. Can I mention one more thing that I dislike before we get to the report card? Would you mind that? Thanks. I didn't think you would. And I hate that. A dislike. How about that? I dislike that I have to bring up this dislike. Officiating. Now, had Louisville's defense played a smidget, a splinter, a sliver, pick your adjective better than it did, the officiating's miscues or frequent interjection into the game would not have played such a role. So I am not putting the L that Louisville received on the shoulders of the officiating. However, the officiating continues to have too much of an impact, not just on Louisville's games, but throughout the ACC. I mean, look at Miami's 3 victories. Thus, the theories are surfacing about what's going on in the ACC office with their officiating and all that. You overturn the fumble that was scooped up in a score, which if that happens, I'm going to go out on a limb and say Louisville wins that ball game. Arm was moving forward. There's also evidence that appears the ball was tipped before the arm was moving forward, and therefore he basically shot-putted a fumble. It is what it is. Again, ball placement continues to be a head-scratcher at times. It's like, what are we doing? Thankfully, there was one corrected. There seemed to be one, if not two, at least moments where a Louisville offensive player was hit out of bounds or tackled in such a way that you could almost say it was a personal foul. There was also what looked to be like a clear hold on Ashton Gelati, which could have been a quarterback hit, a sack, a hurry, which was not called. Ended up being a 63-yard pass play down to the Louisville 2. Next play, touchdown. So it seems to be a collection of things missed, done improperly. And then when you negate the fumble, I'm still waiting to see the clear evidence that it was not. And again, Jeff Brom asked about it post-game, said, hey, I disagree. Because maybe I'm wrong, because it looked like a fumble to me. And basically his words were kind of like, and this keeps happening. So officiating. Quit being in the game so much. All right, that's enough of the likes, dislikes. We could continue because there was, like I said, plenty to dislike. But let's start on that report card, shall we? Quarterbacks, as we always do, we're going to start with you. And you, that is Tyler Shuck. He's the only quarterback that played against Miami. And what a game it was for the Louisville quarterback. 31 of 51, 342 yards, 4 touchdowns, connected with 9 different receivers. You got to love his poise in the pocket. Even when the pressure is collapsing, he has been nothing but a stud for the Cardinals in the pocket all season long. Louisville quarterbacks against Miami, A. Running backs, again, you got to start with Isaac Brown. He was RB1, got the start against Miami Hurricanes. He rushed for nearly 60 yards, had 9 rushing attempts, averaged 6.3 yards per carry. Also had 6 receptions and was a team high, 32 yards after the catch. His final total was a little bit lower because there was a couple of times he was caught for a loss, but certainly a contributor throughout against the Miami Hurricanes. Duke Watson also getting involved, including that 4-yard touchdown catch. Don Chaney, 29 yards rushing, 19 yards receiving against his former team. Running backs against Miami, we'll give you a B+. Let's talk a little wide receivers. And then when you're talking wide receivers, once again, you need to start with Ja'Cory Brooks. Led Louisville, 6 receptions with a team high, 107 yards for a team high, 2 touchdowns. Chris Bell, 5 catches for 77 yards. Colin Lacey, 4 catches for 52, 57 yards. So they all got involved. Ja'Cory Brooks had the 6 receptions on 11 targets. But overall, I mean, it was a good day where you could tell that Louisville's got playmakers at multiple spots on the field for Tyler Shuck to distribute the ball to. In their play against Miami, the wide receivers get a B+. Tight ends getting a little more involved. Mark Redmond, 3 catches, including his 3rd touchdown as a Cardinal. Jamar Johnson had 2 receptions. Unfortunately, injured, was on the turf for quite a while. And when he came back out in the second half, street clothes, boot, foot in a boot. But for the performance against Miami, I'm gonna give the tight ends a B+. This looks like a place to sit down, so let's do that. What do you say we sit down and talk about this offensive line? You know, the offensive line was something that myself and I think many others expected to be a strength for the Cardinals this year. They certainly have had their hit of injuries. Don't want to ignore that notable fact, but it's still a struggle for the Cardinals. And against Miami, it just was not good. And what I mean by not a really good outing by the offensive line, it meant Tyler Shuck was under pressure quite frequently and certainly impacted the offensive game. And there were some untimely penalties as well. But really, when you look at it, Austin Collins, he had the highest grade offensively, around 69%. Pete Nigra, who played all 75 snaps at center, was next best with a Pro Football Focus grade of 62, and the rest were down near the bottom. Michael Gonzalez, another guy who played every snap offensively for the Cardinals, really struggled in pass block against the Hurricanes. And let me grab my cheat sheet. Jonathan Mendoza and Trevante Sylvester, when you look at the PFF grades, last and next to last. And when you include Rashid Miller in the mix, who split time at left tackle, actually got a few more snaps At left tackle, he was slightly above as well. But overall, as a whole, just not a good day for the offensive line. C-. All right, it's time to talk some defense, and in doing so, I feel like I need to start by recognizing, yes, Miami continues to be the #1 offense in the country. Cam Ward is an unbelievable college quarterback. Leads the country. Those things are recognized. Also, when it comes to the grading of the position groups, I'm certainly not going to put all of the blame for what we've seen in recent weeks, especially in this most recent game against Miami, giving up 52 points. I'm not going to put all of that on the shoulders of the players. Some of that is scheme. Communication continues to be an issue. We'll get into that a little bit when we grade the coaches. So let's get started with the defense, and we'll start with the defensive line. There were a few individual good moments. You got to remember the back-to-back sacks from Jordan Garrard and Des Tell. That was a big moment for the defense. Problem was there weren't enough of those big moments. There was another one. Thor Griffith forcing a fumble. Again, not enough of those type of moments. Ramon Purrier led the defensive line with 8 tackles. So there were some individual moments, but there were certainly not enough from the defensive front, and they didn't get enough help from the linebackers and the secondary. It was a group effort defensively. For their performance against Miami, the defensive line, C-. Linebackers. I'll bring up the point about missed tackles. Certainly wasn't all just the linebackers. There was also moments where there was just people running free. That certainly wasn't all on the linebackers. Let's duck under this tree. Something that the Miami offensive players seem to be able to do is duck under the Louisville defenders. How about that? TJ Quinn, 7 tackles, graded out really well from PFF. Stanquan Clark, as much as I've praised him and as he's earned the praise for a lot of his play this season, this game against Miami certainly wasn't one of his best. One of the lower graded defensive players for the Cardinals against the Hurricanes. Need better, more consistent play, and that's what we've seen from him this year. So I think it's hopefully just an anomaly from Stanquan Clark. But again, part of a defense that gave up 52 points. Linebackers against the Hurricanes, C-. Secondary, certainly not a good day for the secondary. Of the 13 missed tackles, at least 13 missed tackles, Pro Football Focus says 6 of those belong to guys in the secondary. Not good. Miami came in, again, #1 offense, again, #1 in the country with big plays of 20 yards or more. They continued to do that against the Cardinals and had 3 pass plays of over 40 yards or more. Can't have that. The trend in the secondary is an area that certainly needs to reverse course immediately. Secondary needs to get its game together. It's not playing up to its capabilities. I think that's fair to say. For their performance against Miami, secondary gets a D. Special teams, and when you're talking special teams against Miami, you have to start with the highlight that was Colin Lacey, 100-yard kickoff return. He finished with a 191 kickoff return yards against Miami, so a good day in special teams for Colin Lacey. Brock Travelstead was 1 for 1 on field goals, missing a 52-yard field goal. Nick Keller came in. Brock Travelstead had a couple of the kickoffs. Nick Keller had 4. 3 of those went for touchbacks. Brady Hodges had 3 punts, averaged about 45 yards. Not much of a punt return game to speak of against Miami. I mean, they were scoring at will. So, but overall against Miami, special teams, B+. All kinds of directions here. This makes me think of we need to grade the coaching staff. Okay, so as I mentioned at the beginning of the video here, one of the things that I liked was the offensive play calling. Again, thought it was the best of the season. I think it was quite clear in my dislikes, and as we went throughout the report card, But defensively, quite the opposite. If it was the best offensive play calling and offensive performance of the season for this Cardinals team, this was clearly the worst defensive performance for this Cardinals team. And again, want to mention, yes, Miami #1 offense in the country, but the missed tackles, the continued concerns of communication, you could see it visibly a couple times during the game, and then again it's mentioned in post-game. Those things should not be part of the discussion when you're 7 games into your schedule. You're sitting at 4-3. If those are the discussions, that's why you're sitting at 4-3. When a team scores 45 points, they should not be on the losing end of a ball game when you're talking about a Power 4 program with aspirations of getting to an ACC championship, and at the beginning of the season, a spot in the 12-team college football playoff. Offensively, loved how they mixed it up. Got the tight ends involved a little bit more, a little earlier. Loved the ability for Tyler Shuck to spread it around and the ability to keep pace, and how it was mixed up. And again, some of the trickery, we should say, really like that. But the defensive performance is really weighing that grade down against the Miami Hurricanes. We're going to give the Cardinals staff a C-. All right, we're on our way out, making our rather steep descent off of the Purple Heart Trail here at Jefferson Memorial Forest. So let's get to our overall grades. Overall, offensively, liked what you did. You scored 45 points. That's impressive. Still could get a little bit better, and that's holding you back as well. So offensively, we're going to give you an A-. Defensively, what else is there to say? Like, it was bad. It was bad. Overall, defense, D+. Thanks again for going hiking with Michael McCammon for the 3rd time. A report card that didn't really like dishing out. This one, half decent. The offense looks like they're getting their stride. Still have improvements to make. But defensively, these self-inflicted things continue to happen, and that's not a discussion you need to be having after 7 games. And I look back at my top 5 key games for the 2024 season. Number 5 was Georgia Tech, a W. Number 4 was Notre Dame, a 1-score loss. Number 3 is still to come, the rivalry against Kentucky. Number 2 was Miami, a 1-score loss. Still to come is Clemson. That would be a big win, another big opportunity for the Cardinals. But to be 4-3 and having the discussion about the defense that we're having certainly makes it a disappointment to this point in the season. There's no questions about it. We'll continue to dish out report cards. The next one, maybe a little bit earlier, as the Cardinals travel to Boston College on a Friday night.